Yep. I guess we're going to stop saying all the funny things because we're now on the podcast. Welcome to Ads at 50, episode 2. We're here.
Deutsch, episode Deutsch.
It's a very exciting time. We aspire to be better than Hot Shots Part 2.
Or do
Electric Boogaloo.
we aspire to inspire?
I've got a nice strawberry Starburst drink here. Sugar free. Now you got it because I took the last of the good ones.
Yeah.
All the drinks at the house are strawberry right now because I bought them.
While I was away.
Because the strawberry is the best. I don't know how you feel about Zevia flavors. I know how you feel about Zevia flavors. I don't know how about the audience feels about Zevia flavors. I feel like the fruit Zevia flavors work. Like the orange works, the grape works, and the strawberry works. But they don't sell the strawberry anywhere. So you have to buy it off of Amazon. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, and they usually charge premium.
Yeah, I got it on sale during Black Friday. That's why there's so much strawberry Zevia here. So that's what's up. Paul is not the biggest fan of the fruit flavored ones.
I do like orange.
You like the root beer, right?
The root beer does me pretty good. I like beer. Deal.
Root beer has that weird ginger to it. I don't like it.
Yeah. I don't know. I am generally suspect of drinking any brown sodas, even though I do drink the zero sugar ones. Like that's what I like about the stevias is that they're okay with their drinks just being clear. So I feel like there's less additives that have to go into it.
That's probably true. Yeah. I mean, admittedly, objectively, if you're drinking sparkling water with flavor, Zevia probably is the best option.
Yeah.
I guess from a health standpoint, like I can't stand sparkling water, so I'm never going to drink that. Like I'm not going to be drinking any LaCroix or any of that crap. It tastes terrible. I will just drink regular water at that point. I mean, that seems stupid.
So they offer you a ton of money to sponsor the podcast.
Like, if we ever got a sponsorship from Zevia, that would just be the end of my universe. Like, there's no way with a straight face I could say that crap tastes good. It tastes like shit. And it's some of the worst. Like, I don't know how people drink it. You might as well just drink water or drink sparkling water. Like, get a soda stream at your house and just inject your own sparkling water and then drink it. It's like way cheaper that way.
Right, to clarify, for the record, he's talking about LaCroix, not these wonderful brand name stevias that we would gladly take a sponsorship for.
Oh yes, we love Zevia. Yeah, Zevia is far superior to Zevia is far superior to LaCroix. Honestly, though, Zevia is not that expensive in the big scheme of things. Like I bought, I think those cases for $18. Like regular soda is like $12 a case now.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
So,
like with everything that we talked about too, you have to put the embedded costs in all these things as well, right? Like, what are the downstream costs of drinking, 12 Coca-Colas a day? Like, far worse for you than, whatever the cost differential is to you. Like for me, certainly when I'm consistently cutting weight or doing whatever, it just really helps kind of deal with that psychological urge to want to drink something that's not the 2 gallons of water I'm drinking in a day. So if stevia is something that you like, or you find an alternative one that you like, there's no, I don't really like them, but they're really popular at Whole Foods, the Olipop ones or whatever.
Yeah.
Those aren't 0 calorie, but they're pretty low calorie. And so if you're replacing just a standard, I mean, there's just so much sugar and like a Mountain Dew or Dr. Pepper or Coca-Cola. Like it's just that extra, 180 to 280 calories. How many fluid ounces it is that you're getting.
Well, there's a reason I started talking about soda today, because we're going to talk about calories today. And yeah, and honestly too, like if you're drinking, if you're going to, you don't even have to drink Zevia, right? Like we're talking about fine points like here, but if you want to drink a lot of water during the day, but have a couple of diet sodas. Like, I'm not gonna go crush anybody's soul for having NutraSweet or, that's fine, right? Like, if you want that in your soda or you want the color, I'm drinking an ice strawberry Starburst right now, right? Like, I'm gonna probably be okay. Like, I'm probably much better off than if I was drinking a sugary strawberry drink.
Right. Yeah.
And your calories just go so fast. And honestly too, like, if you're counting calories and you want to build a soda into your intake for the day, that's fine. But you just have to realize that's going to be like 180 calories of no nutritional benefit for you. So you're going to have to make up those nutritional macros somewhere else.
Yeah. That's the hardest part is making that balance where it's just, you know, often referred to as empty calories, right? Whatever that term means to you, that's really what it means as far as like the way we're looking at it is we're trying to get, you only have so many calories allotted in a day, and you're also trying to hit certain macronutrients goals as far as the carb to fat to protein ratio. And so the way that it's empty in that scenario is that it essentially fills up nothing but maybe the carbohydrates. And the carbohydrates is the thing that you're probably trying to mitigate the most in a calorie restricted diet because fat, or unless you're taking in a lot of fats. So, every gram of fat tends to be more calorically dense. So
Right.
you still want to get your essential fats as well. That's the other side of that aspect is you want to make sure you're getting proper fats, proper carbs, and proper protein. And yeah, if you just kill, too hard, I mean, it's just like that. You're talking about if you drink a 12-ounce soda, right? So if you drink a 20-ounce
Correct.
Coke,
Yep.
like you're gonna have, I think that's like 240 calories. Like that's just so many calories that you consume so quickly without thinking about it. And I mean, I did that as a kid. I drank mostly sodas as a kid. You have no context of it growing up, especially
Oh,
in,
I drank a ton of soda as a kid. Like, and it was mostly Coca-Cola.
yeah, mine was Dr. Pepper. My parents only drank Coca-Cola. That was one of the faults for my father. I begged him uh, for years. It was like we'd be together and like, would you drink something other than Coca-Cola around me, please? Because it's quite frustrating with all the health issues that he had leading up to the end of his life. That's just like one of the easy things that you can do that I think will have an immediate health benefit is if you can just reduce the amount of soda, sugary sodas that you're drinking. You're probably gonna. I mean, I think you're on average, you know, Americans, I think, yeah, being something like 10 pounds a year just from drinking soda, like the amount of calories, it just adds up. Like if it's a staple in your diet, like that's one of the easiest changes. I think that's the other thing too, is if you're looking for just simple, like heuristics to try to lose weight, not drinking your calories is like the easiest way to do it because just the physical act of having to eat your calories is just more energy intensive. I think you're just more cognizant of it. I think like you just sit down and break 300 calories and not even notice, but
And that includes like fruit juice.
oh yeah, fruit juice, I believe has finally been recognized by the Academy of Pediatrics, wherever they're organized by is to be very detrimental to the development of fatty liver disease in children. So, uh, you really want to, um, and the other thing too, having just come back from, international travel, again, it's socially dependent, right? We're talking about the juice that you're getting in America, which is usually highly concentrated. Oftentimes we'll have added sugar, like they will add sugar to these things that are already, super intensive from the fructose. And so you have to watch out for that. And it's not like just coming back from Brazil, like in Brazil, we drink juice all the time, but it's like, number one, your fruit is just of higher quality because of geography. That's something that became readily apparent. And number two is like all the places they're culturally, they have like real, high quality like juicing machines. And so like they're
Yeah.
like you're still getting some of the phytonutrients and you're getting some of the fiber. Like it's like, juice with pulp, but it's made well. And you're not getting that from the stuff you're buying at the store, right? So you're not getting any of the fiber, like eating fruit is significantly different from the way your body is going to metabolize it and the way your blood sugar is going to fluctuate because you're having to process it differently. You're having to chew it. You're getting the fiber. All of that matters. Like, if you're having like one tiny little glass of orange juice, it's going to be fine. But like when I get sick, I'm the worst offender at this. Like I'm like down in a whole bottle. It's so easy to take in, 20 fluid
But
ounce.
again, there's so many products to get like vitamin C or things like that, right? Like if you they have and I'm sure somebody's going to be like, "Dan, supplements are terrible and you're just going to pee it out and all that." But I think you're just going to pee the juice out too. Like you Emergency has a zero sugar pouch right now. It's not even a pouch, it's like a round cylinder cuz the sugar's not in there, right? So you can get zero if you wanna drink the vitamin C, you can get the zero sugar vitamin C supplements, like, those exist now, and they're readily available, like, they're easy to get. I think there's a lot of ways that you can do that, and the other part too, though, I mean, you are the worst offender, I agree on the juice thing, but we could just tell somebody when they're sick to eat an orange. Yeah, that would be a much better alternative. I got some oranges the other day to eat. I've been really focused, in this too on getting fruit and making sure I have fruit around to eat because that's a better source of carbohydrates too than it is to eat, straight sugar or go have some rice. I have eaten rice too, but pasta and whatever. I mean, if I'm carb short for the day, it's much better for me to go grab a banana than it is to grab, rice, right? Or anything else. And I'll just say this too. We were joking about this the other day. If I'm gonna drink my calories, I'm gonna have a milkshake. I'm gonna get protein in there. I'm gonna get milk fats. I know some people can't do dairy, and that's fine, but I'm gonna get milk fat. I'm gonna get obviously I'm gonna get sugar, right? Which I don't want, but I'm gonna get milk fat and protein, which is a much better option than drinking a soda or drinking juice.
Yeah.
And none of them are good options, right? Should I have a milkshake? Well, yeah, I had a milkshake on this journey because it fit into my calories for the day. Okay, cool. You want to make it fit into your calories again once in a while? We're not saying deprive yourself of sweets forever, but we're saying be super conscious about it, right? Like, I'm not never going to eat a sweet again.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Yeah. No, and I think, you know, what you're discussing is your personal choice, right? Like if there's like some, guava fruit juice smoothie that you just kills it for you, like you like taking it, say, post workout or whatever, it's something that really satiates you. And it's like, man, I really love that and don't want to give it up. Then don't. Um, I think, one thing that you just have to do on this type, if you're taking a conscientious effort to, significantly reduce your body mass and lose weight, it's just, you're not going to be able to have it all, right? So you do at some point have to make certain choices, but you want to do those that are, going to be psychologically tolerable to you long term. If you want it to be something that you can keep up over time. So it's like, if there's only one thing that's out there that's keeping you going and you're like, I just can't give this up. Well, if you can fit it into, the rubric of your daily caloric intake, like unless you're doing like, a bodybuilding tournament or something and you're trying to get to super physiological low body
Yeah.
fat, it's not going to make much of a difference.
And we're talking about people that are training and choosing to lose weight. We're not talking about a hyper athletic state, right? Like we're not talking about like your friend Zach training for the Olympic trials in wrestling, right? Like that is not me or even
Right.
close to me. We're not talking about in your case training for a jujitsu competition, right? Where, and of course you burn so many calories in a day, you can pretty much eat whatever you want within reason. Except when you're cutting weight, and that's a different discussion. Like, I don't even wanna get into weight cutting today. But well, and, I just bought some stuff for me to satiate myself too, right? Like, I have some you found this, that eFlow Nutrition protein. And, that works pretty decently for me. I wouldn't say I'm not great with whey protein. So I will say sometimes when you're looking at calories too, you have to be careful when you're doing proteins and stuff. You don't want to ruin your stomach. But, we have that. But I also just bought myself some what our roommate called junk protein, right? Some ghost protein, but it's like Chips Ahoy flavored. I think there's other things out there if you're dying to get something satiated. I know the Mark Bell group is big on I've got them right next to me. I never eat them. The legendary stuff. Yeah, there's ways to do it. But let's transition into that. I want to get into a calorie discussion. I know we already ate up like 15 minutes of time talking about drinking your calories, but I think that's an important first step is to thinking about that and just being really conscious about it. Let's do a quick update. I have a couple of questions for you on my update, and then we can get into hey, is calorie counting worth it? Like I heard somebody on a podcast the other day say calorie counting wasn't worth it. You're not going to be accurate. It's not going to do anything for you. You should just eat and do what your body tells you to do. I want to get into discuss that a little bit, see if that's good advice or not. And but we do have an update. So way back, we started out this journey at 29.8% body fat, and we just did an update today. You're back from Brazil, and body fat percentage was 26.9, down from 29.8% at the start of 1st of November, and then so how are you feeling about my progress there?
Yeah, I think that right now I'm less concerned about the body fat percentage, though I know that is one of the goals. As I'm actually happier about just like where the weight loss is at because you're under 200 pounds. So I think psychologically, I think that's a big win for you. So I think that's good to just acknowledge that and revel in that. For it's like, man, and in the this is what I mean. That's one of the cool things about setting high goals, right? Is like when you set high goals and specific goals, it's like you get other things that you want as a byproduct of those goals. It's true in athletic endeavors, and true, I think, in business endeavors. Yeah, I think that's true for you too. And
Well, and
so,
the weight's down from 211.1 where we started to 198.6
yeah,
as of today, and that's an afternoon weigh-in, so not a morning weigh-in. There is something I am concerned about though, and back to the goal. So the goal was about around 174 pounds to at the end of this and around 15% body fat. So that was the goals we started with. It was a question I have for you, and of course, this could just be the accuracy of the scale. But when I started back at the beginning of November, the scale said I had 140.7 pounds of muscle mass, and today it said I had 137.9 pounds of muscle mass. So, are you concerned about that at all?
no, I'm not. So number one, the scale that we're working with is exceedingly low quality as far as like its measuring abilities. So I taking that as as a fair approximation. Um, but number two, I saw you today as far as like just looking at your muscularity. It looks really good. It looks better than it has in a long time. Like your arms are looking more cut than they have in a long time. You're commenting about being able to see veins, and so and you
In
lifted
my
real,
legs,
yeah, in
in
your
my
leg,
leg,
yeah, and
not the upper leg, but lower legs.
you lifted really heavy shit today. So I don't. It's not an overriding concern for me at this point.
Okay.
I,
What
you know,
would be an overriding concern for you? Like, if we're looking at like 4 weeks from now, like if it went down by how many pounds more, what would start to concern you?
yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing you have to understand is that you're gonna lose a little bit of mass. There's just no two ways about it, right? Like it's just like what did Matthew call it? He's like it's like the golden rhino, right? It's like or the white rhino. You want you want everything all at once, and so
Right.
I'm not concerned about really any measurements of muscle loss as long as you're able to do the workouts. Honestly, like I'm not worried about the number as far as muscle loss. Like unless it just became like catastrophic where you like lost 40 pounds of mass that you're like dying. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as long as you're able to maintain the same workloads that we're doing and maybe even increase them like a slight bit, because you're at some point you're going to hit a little bit of a lag, but again, we're not starving you. So the idea is for you to be able to have like marginally higher, or at least even just maintaining the workloads as the calories and weight goes down and down. Because on the inverse side, what we know that Dan doesn't have a problem with is going to be gaining weight and eating food. Right. So if it's
I
like,
love both of those things.
yeah,
Not the
it's
gaining weight part. I love the eating food part.
yeah. So I'm based on the work that we've done. I mean, over the course of the last 10 years and the work that we've done together over the course of the last year and a half, Dylan did. I don't have general. So Dan by nature is an obsessive person and gets into routines. And so you have the routine of lifting. So until such time that the amount that calorie deficit would be, you're like, oh, I just missed 6 workouts in a row. That would be more concerning to me more than any number on the scale loss for muscle mass because I have faith in our ability to put stuff on if we deem that you are somehow under muscled. I just
Right.
don't. You're lifting too heavy of things and doing too much of workload for that to be, for me to be a major concern. Again, not a medical professional. So if it started dropping precipitously, where you're like down 40 pounds, I'd be like, okay, we're not worried about anything. You need to go to a doctor and,
Right.
if you have cancer. Like, but as far as it's an excellent question, as far as your observation, I mean, it is a number to watch that becomes catastrophic. But if you lose, another 8 pounds, if it says you lose another 8 pounds in muscle mass, number one, I'm more just because at the end, the gold standards are still, the DEXA scans and is like calipers, right? And what is calipers? They literally just take the skin and they just measure it with,
Yeah.
with the measuring tools that they have. I mean, it's a visual check, right? Like I can tell visually when someone is muscular or not. I'm going to be able to tell visually if you're anemic or not. Are you looking flat or not? Does it look like, your arms are losing, fat, or does it look like they're losing overall size? If that makes sense.
Yep. Well, and that was the question. I mean, and technically too, looking at this, right? If I've lost about 12 and a half pounds, I say about, if I've lost 12 and a half pounds and 2.7 pounds are supposedly based on the scale muscle, that means the rest of that, 12 and a half. So what, about 10 pounds has been fat and water, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's a pretty solid
yeah,
ratio. That's a pretty like, if you're looking at, I don't know if you want to name names at this moment in time, but if you're looking at certain pharmaceutical products that are going to be making people lose weight, there are reports that's certainly mainstream pharmaceutical.
yeah, they're called GLP-1s. Just call them
Yeah,
what they are. Sue me.
yeah, yeah. GLP-1s have, from reports that I've seen, have had people lose anywhere up to 60% of their weight loss coming from lean muscle mass, which that is far more catastrophic than a 2 out of 12, right?
Yeah.
Like that percentage is far more sustainable and healthy from my perspective. A 2 out of 12 as opposed to, I mean, that would be like being like 8 out of 12, right? Like you're talking about over 50% of your loss coming from lean muscle tissue. Yeah, that would concern.
Yeah, and yeah, bring it. Somebody sue us over GLP-1s. I'd love to see that happen. I've talked to pharmacists about GLP-1s. They shake their heads, literally shake their heads, right? They have to dispense them, but they're literally shaking their heads at people using them. Like I kind of feel like if you stumble onto this podcast because you're like abs at 50, what's that all about? Hey, I'm interested in hearing this journey. Please listen to the journey and reach out to Paul, right? Like we will give you a workout that will can benefit you. Like even if that workout is walking couple miles a day, right? Like would be far superior to taking a GLP-1 except in extreme circumstances, right? Like yeah, if you can't physically walk 2 miles a day and you're working up to that, then yeah, work with your healthcare professional and get that figured out, right? And please do everything you can. We're not going to tell you, "Oh no, you're terrible for taking a GLP-1." But there are a lot of people out there that could benefit a lot more from walking outside and physical fitness and taking that GLP-1. And we don't even know the long-term side effects of GLP-1s for weight loss yet, right? GLP-1s weren't even for weight loss. They were for blood sugar management.
Yeah. I think I heard what Dr. Mike or something have a take on this where it's like, you don't want to deny yourself tools that clearly have that justification to them. So like clearly it can make people lose weight. And we have a dire need for people to lose weight in this country. So, I'll reserve judgment to see what the long-term data says. But what I can tell you is from lived experience and pretty much everything I've ever seen in any physical activity or physical endeavor is there are no shortcuts that are sustainable.
You know,
Like, everyone pays a price, right? For people who take, performance enhancing drugs, they sometimes pay that price later on in life, but everything comes at a cost. Like if you are doing things other than just the hard work that it takes to build lean muscle, um, then, your health problems long term are not going to be as strong as doing the hard work, right? Like it's the hard thing is the thing that needs to be done, and that's why it's called the hard thing. It is lived as that is to say. It's if it were easy, everyone would do it. But on the flip side of that, what I can tell you when you get to the other side is, barring some catastrophic event, nothing's going to take that away from you, right? Like once you put in the literal sweat equity to increase your muscle mass, to be at a certain, physical fitness level, you make the changes, you make it a habit of your life, then you can, let go a little bit. And you don't have to, I mean, getting into, our discussion that we're leading up to as far as counting calories, but you're doing the work to where you have edifice, you have the framework of your body set forward for success. Of course, anything can happen, but you've taken the consistent overtime, month to month, year to year, to build your body up, and so that's not just going to go away. It's not just going to go away. And I've met so many people that just straight up take steroids, right? Like high amounts of steroids, and they're like, I just have never, I'm not half as strong as when I'm, on a cycle or something. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you didn't earn it, right? Your body can't lift that weight because your body can't lift that weight without some type of fancy drugs, right? Like for me, I can take Tylenol from lifting because I go through cycles of heavy lifting, hypertrophy lifting, rehab, prehab, depending on what my goals are. But I can go back to it and I can build back up my bench press in weeks, a month, because I spent years of consistent time, lifting and training and staying in shape, and taking a little bit of time off of any one thing doesn't diminish my ability to do those things because I did it the hard way. And would I be, 5 times stronger if I've been taking steroids the last 10 years? Yeah, sure. Maybe I'd be deadlifting 900 pounds, but it wouldn't do me any good for anything that I want to accomplish, both long
why?
term health wise and in my athletic endeavors.
Well, I think that might be a good discussion for a different podcast, though. Low dose TRT, high dose steroids, right? Like what's working? Because you were talking about the tools too, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And
And
so,
yeah, I definitely think we can table that discussion for the future, which is not to say that at 70 years old, I'm not going to take care of steroid. That's what we're
or
serving.
at 50, yeah. But I'm certainly, yeah, I'm on low dose TRT. I'll disclose that to folks right now, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not on high dose anything. So,
No, and yeah, I think I discussed the fact that you've had low testosterone levels for a while, and there is a legitimate need for that in this country, and I think people should get regular blood work and see what their TRT levels are, and if they're below normal. I'm all in favor of. I mean, it's no different than it's a hormone. It's no different than any other hormone. It's no different than any other nutrient. If if you don't have enough vitamin D, I would say you should supplement some vitamin D. If you
do that
don't,
too.
yeah, if you don't have, I think everyone should be taking creatine. So if you're not taking creatine, you should be taking creatine. for thick oils or whatever it is. I think you want to get to proper ranges of what is designated as medically healthy physiological doses of everything. I mean, that is optimality. You're trying to have an optimal life. You're trying to have an optimal balance, and you want to have an optimal of all this, including, for both men and women, right? Men and women, women also need to have proper testosterone levels. And there's a lot of things, and you can get all the different kind of discussions as far as, physiological, sociological, whether it's our food, the environment, whatever it is that's causing mainly men to have, I mean, that's essentially, you can take, judicial notice, as we would say with this, the fact that men's testosterone levels have been measured as going down over the last 30 years. So there's all different kinds of confounding issues to that, but uh,
Well, you can also use them in different ways, and like I said, let's do that as a separate podcast. But I will just say, like, I want to summarize too, and just say, you could abuse that the same way you could abuse a GLP-1 or anything else, right? Like, you were talking about people that that take, all sorts of steroids to just get shredded for whatever, right?
yeah,
But there's also the abuse of taking it to quote unquote feel better, right? But not training. So there's the flip side of that too. Oh, well, I need a TRT supplement because it makes me feel better and it makes me feel more attractive and I have more confidence. Okay, cool. I don't know what the purpose of that is, right?
yeah, I
I
think,
feel like there's other medications designed for that that are probably better for you if you're getting into that. I'm also not a medical provider, so
yeah, there's a lot of things. It could be, people have mental health issues. Could be that there are other hormones that are out of balance. So testosterone can just generally make you feel better in the moment, but I think it all has to be weighed against. But keeping I mean, you don't want to, especially. I think will take this moment to speak to young men. That's someone who was a young man, but not particularly happy with their size or physical prowess, which is you could do long term irreparable harm to your body uh, if you start using high levels of testosterone and steroids at a young age. And so I would discourage you from doing that. It sucks because you can't look the way you want to look in this moment in time. But if you take the years and it might be a decade worth of time to actually earn the body that you're going to have, you can live a long and healthy life as opposed to sacrificing, the last 20 years of your health span to try to look the way you want to look now. But of course, some person.
well, let's talk about that too, right? So that's a good transition into the calorie piece, right? And so when we started this, we used two calculations, right? We used the scale, but we also used calculated my basal metabolic rate. We figured out with the amount of training that I do, and obviously it's not going to be static every single day because I train at different levels, different days. But on average, I need 2,800 calories a day to maintain my body weight. And so we've got the calculation of 18 to 2,200 calories a day to lose 0.7% of my body weight each week. So that's where we're sitting. And like I said, I heard, the other day, oh, well, and I've heard this other times too. Like, well, you don't really need to worry about counting your calories because you're not going to be accurate and you should just do what your body wants. And now I want to be really clear. I know the folks that are talking about that aren't talking about, say, like intuitive eating. That's a whole nother community that I'm not even gonna get into because one, if I say anything bad about it, I'm gonna have 5,000 people flaming me. But and so then I'm automatically gonna say something about it. I don't believe in that. I don't think it works. Personally, for me, intuitive eating like means that I eat when I'm hungry. Let me tell you, if I eat when I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat everything. The amount of chocolate that I can eat is amazing. I have You've seen me on days where I'm just insane and just want every piece of food in the building, right? I
Yeah.
think
I think,
that doesn't work for me. I'm just gonna be real clear. Intuitive eating is an out. That does not work for me.
yeah. I mean, at the base level, to be the warrior in the room is, you start with understanding your definition. So like, we always talk about calories, but like, I always go back to, like, what is a calorie? Calorie it's a unit of measurement of energy, right? Essentially to, the chemical energy needed to raise, 1 gram of water by 1 degree centigrade, right? Like that's all it is. It's just a definition of a unit of measurement of energy. Okay. So we are biological beings and we take in, chemical sustenance in order to generate chemical reactions. And that is governed by something we call calories. So a calorie is just a measurement of how much energy something has. And the number one, I mean, it is almost reductionist to say that the number one cause of obesity is an excess of energy, right? Your body cannot process the amount of energy that you are taking in for any number of reasons. Could be you're overeating. That's the most likely culprit, right? Because we live, particularly in America. I mean, it's just ridiculous of how food rich of an environment that we have. There are calories, highly processed, sugary, carbohydrate based calories, oftentimes devoid of essential nutrients at every turn in America, all over the place, all the time. That's the environment that we live in. The other thing is I mean, they got even worse during COVID. COVID did um, no favors to anyone when it came to physical activity levels, but we have a very sedentary lifestyle. And it starts from childhood. Kids are far less active today than they ever did, right? And we talk about, the difference in sociology and environments where it's like, latchkey kids versus, where, kids go out to play like they used to before. I mean, and yeah, you have a whole generation of kids that are growing up in the post, COVID era, and they never learned to go out and play because it was literally forbidden in many parts of the United States.
Yep.
It, and so, the notion that you should not count your calories because your body will just tell you what you need, I think is, uh, doesn't seem to me to have any basis in reality. I don't know of any study that has ever supported such a notion. If anyone finds one, feel free to send it to me. I'll read it. But my general premise is this, and I challenge anyone to come up with a better premise, which is to say that the environment in which we live in America, which demonstrably has the highest levels of obesity we have seen in human history, is because we are out of touch with what our bodies are telling us. We're out of touch with this sensation of being full. We eat too much. We pass being full. We're out of sensations of whether or not we're hydrated. We are just generally, as a people, are not very attuned, who are unfit. Like if you have spent your entire life being unfit, your parents were unfit, you grew up in a household where everyone was unfit. You don't know what it means to be fit. Again, that's not necessarily your fault, and likely not your fault because you weren't in culture or in a family that promoted those things. But you don't know what it's like to be properly hydrated to do a half marathon or to, lit for 3 hours or to, climb 15 miles up a mountain, right? Like you've never done those things. So how could you possibly be in tune with what your body needs to accomplish those things? And,
Exactly.
and at the same time, if you're consuming, the amount of calories you need to climb a mountain and you've never climbed a mountain, then you're out of balance in the energy calculation that you need in order to have a well balanced lifestyle. You're out of balance. And so the only way, this is something that I've been just studying more and more and more. Every book I've read, many of the books up there, many of the books I've listened to, right, is like when it comes to fitness, right? Like if you can't measure it, right, then you can't manipulate it, right? Like I can't measure what my marketing is doing for my businesses, and I can't manipulate it. I can't make
Right.
changes for the better. And I think that is just to say that the average American who has never counted calories before doesn't actually have a good sense of how many calories are in anything that they're eating, even if they're reading packages, right? Because packages are in themselves can be misleading, right? It'll be like, oh, it's 130 calories for 1/4 of a serving. And it's like, who eats 1/4 of a, I mean, the whole damn bag. Like I don't know, like that I'm measuring it.
I
It's
was I made a meatloaf tonight and I use pork rinds in the meatloaf instead of using breadcrumbs a lot of times. So I'll grind them up. Do you know how many servings are in that little lightweight bag of pork rinds?
I don't know,
6 to 8.
6 to 8. Yeah.
Yeah, and like pork rinds don't weigh anything, right? So you could easily eat half that bag, like. And yeah, to Paul's point too, I think it's easy. It almost I don't want to say it, it does kind of come from a privileged position though. I don't want to get into privilege too much, but for somebody who has the knowledge Paul is discussing to say, "Oh, well, I don't count my calories because I'm super familiar with what I eat." Well, yeah, like I can tell you right now because I'm familiar with like cooking at home and eating that if I eat a 4 egg omelet with a piece of cheese in the morning that goes in the omelet, and then I eat some chicken and rice for lunch, and then I eat a small steak and some pineapple and some greens for dinner. I know I'm gonna be under my calorie threshold. That also doesn't mean I'm not counting the calories. Like, I may not be weighing them, it may not be exact, but I'm looking at the food and saying, "Okay, yeah." Like, but where that gets really dangerous, to your point, is like chicken and rice. Right? Like 100 grams of rice is about all you should eat with a meal most of the time. And you're looking at chicken on top of that. Man, you could easily scoop more rice and end up with, 4 or 500 calories of rice in your bowl instead of a couple hundred calories of rice.
Yeah.
Easily. That's where weighing comes in. So what we did for this is I have a scale that I use to ship things, but it also works for it's got batteries in it. Do you remember how long it took me to figure out I could use my scale with batteries and not the cord?
I don't know, 5 years.
Was it really 5 years? I mean, that seems like a long time.
You got to get the last house that we owned.
And then I like and I was like, "Oh, I broke the cord. Oh, wait a minute, you can put batteries down here. Oh, that would make things a lot easier. I can move the scale wherever I want to put packages on it." Yeah. Well, it's really nice in the kitchen because I can just move it around the kitchen, right? So, I'm not tied to a wall. So you can get a little battery scale. I'm not endorsing any particular scale, but this one is also great because you can set things on it when you turn it on and it weighs the container. So, like if I'm piling things onto a plate, for example, I can start out with the plate, right? Add chicken and then restart it and add the next thing. And it always resets to 0, right? So I can keep building a plate full of food. That makes it really easy to measure your food. So I highly recommend a scale that will zero out with whatever you start with, right? So if you've got a plate on there, then you can just keep adding to it. But I think the big thing about doing the food tracking for me is, when I'm weighing it, there's no lies. And for me, I'm also a grazer. So when I'm weighing, there's no grazing.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, so number one, I mean, there's just tons and tons of data, oodles of data from epidemiological studies that show that, there's like one National Health Nutrition Examination survey that shows over 40 years that anywhere from 58% of men, 67% of women made, they essentially made calorie estimations that were not plausible or not credible. Right. So it's just like, there's just, um, and I think that just, humans do have, like, in the grand scheme, humans have good, general intuition. But when it comes to minutia, we have terrible intuition. That's why we had to develop that. So that was one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about is like, well, it's just going to be an approximation, but that is what mathematics is, right? Like that's what every measurement that every human being has ever made should have, the two squiggly lines that they have for mathematics and the approximation. That's what it is. Like when you're measuring something, like, you're measuring it in like what I meatloaf, 630 grams. But it's not 630 grams, it's 630.1027 to the 90th
Yeah.
decimal point. But that's not practical. And that's not how we measure things, right? I mean, now that we're in the age of quantum computing, and maybe there's something out there that can scan a piece of chicken and tell you down to the absolute molecular level, to the 9 millionth decimal point, exactly how much it is. But that doesn't have any utility as far as informing me any more than 630 even is, right? But 630 is very useful to me if I don't know. I was thinking about it like you and cashews, right? How much like you just can devour a bag of cashews. But so I want like an experiment people could do is get a little scale, and then without looking at the bag, without thinking about anything, guess. Take a handful of cashews and guess how many calories are in, and measure it exactly, and then get the exact measurement. And I am almost assured that you're going to. It's just things like that. And that, again, to the Billy Bean line, right? Like that then matters in the aggregate, right? Because if every time you're making a choice and you think you're eating 30 calories, but you're eating 90 calories, you're off by, times three, right? Like you're off by a factor of three. And so if you're off,
But I had the experience the other night. So I buy big packs of chicken thighs, right? And we'll make them. And those are usually bigger chicken thighs, right? Like when you're buying them from the store than when you say go to a restaurant and get fried chicken, right? Usually.
yeah, yeah. And well, and that's the thing too, is like, you know, you have the locus of control when you're eating at home too. So I mean, that's going to be a surefire way to just reduce your calories because I mean, I think like if you're at like McDonald's or something, that they have enough liability these days that they're probably pretty accurate on their calorie counts. But like if you go down like your local Mexican restaurant and they tell you something, I mean, I don't know that you could trust that. I don't know that that's their fault. I don't know that they have good mechanisms to be like, yeah, this is 700 calories.
And let's talk about how to not trust it though. I think this is where it's not intuitive, but this is where learning what you eat and being able to visually check something starts to become very valuable to you, right? So the other night, I'm at game night with my friends and they're like, "What can Dan eat?" Well, they ordered fried chicken, right? So, maybe the skin's not perfect for me, but fine. We got fried chicken. That's definitely something that's going to be healthier for me than getting a lot of different meals, right? So, I eat 3 pieces of chicken and I go into the little calculator that we use. We're using Fat Secret right now, mostly because it's free mode is probably the best free mode we found so far. Is that a fair?
It's pretty good.
I used to use a different calorie counter, which I won't name, but they got bought out by Under Armour. So I'm sure everybody will figure it out really quickly. And like all the apps that got bought out by Under Armour, they were terrible afterwards. So Under Armour, please sponsor us. So but I ate, I ate a chicken thigh, a chicken wing, and a chicken leg. But they're all small. And so I throw, I didn't weigh them out, right? I'm at a friend's house, but I throw them into the calculator, like small chicken thigh, small chicken, it's telling me chicken wing. And I was like, I need to eat 2 more pieces of chicken because like I added up everything and I was like, and I'm doing the visual checks too. Like, yeah, that's not one of the big giant chicken thighs I'm making at home, right? Like it's naturally smaller, but you're doing the visual checks. And I was like, oh, wow, I have to eat 2 more pieces of chicken. Well, here's the thing too. What if, hypothetically, if I'm going between 18 to 2200 calories and I eat 2 more pieces of chicken and those pieces of chicken range between 150 and 300 calories, right? Each. And I know that. What happens if I accidentally go to 2,300 calories for the day?
Yeah. I mean, if it's on any single day, probably nothing.
Nothing.
Well,
Yeah.
and depending on the workload that you have to the day, it actually could be potentially control because we also know
Right.
that mean, again, if you're eating even fried chicken, it's going to have at least some protein in it. We know that At a resting rate, lean muscle mass is promoted by protein, and lean muscle mass burns more calories throughout the day. So, again, it's another thing that in the aggregate is just going to make those changes, right? Like, more lean muscle mass that you have, I mean, it's not a crazy amount, but it is a statistically significant amount of higher calories to be burned at your resting metabolic rate. And so, uh, yeah, I think, our discussion that we were having earlier before this, and it should make sense to people, is it has to do with calibration, right? And ranges. Yes. Number one, you are learning. I mean, so if you've never done any of these things before, I've tried everything to lose weight. But you haven't done any of these steps. Certainly haven't done everything you can to try to lose weight. But the other thing is, yeah, it's like in jujitsu, right? It's like if you're a white
Yep.
belt, then you shouldn't trust your intuitions on anything, right? And so
Because they're
this
making
is
it
just
work.
to, yeah, this is just to recalibrate or to just calibrate. Maybe it's not even recalibrate. You just don't have good intuition as to how much calories are actually in things. And then over time, you build, a good pattern recognition of knowing, like, oh, I have a pretty good idea of how many calories are in something. Then you can back off of having to measure maybe so much. But if you start gaining weight or something happens, then you probably have to recalibrate again. Probably have to start measuring again. Um, because you're like, oh, it turns out, when I stopped tracking, I started letting myself have, for me, it's like a peanut butter sandwich at night, right? Like often. And when I have to wait and not worry about it, I'm chicken coming out. That's the first thing I got to cut. So like, okay, I'm making extra, 350 calories at night that I just don't need, uh, or that
Yeah.
aren't serving my purposes as much or whatever. Right. And you can do that. And you just add it up with everything you do with your life with, candy, cookies, drink, going back to drinking soda, right? So, oh, I added a Coca-Cola back in. And then you stop measuring it. And you're like, oh, I forgot I had a Coke this morning and I had a Dr. Pepper this afternoon, or whatever the drink. I had coffee, I went and got Starbucks, which are large sugar bombs and many of the things that they make, right? And that was 600 calories. And then I had another drink or a glass of wine or whatever it is, right? And you're not measuring it. And so you're like, oh, I forgot that I had it this morning. So you forgot that you had an extra 600 calories, right? Well, like you do that 10 times, that's an extra 6,000 calories that you've taken in over the course of, weeks, months. It's again, all those things happen.
One, what I would say too is, I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit. I've had this scale here. People say, "Oh, it's such a pain to measure to weigh the food out." It really isn't. You set the plate on the scale, you add one thing, you zero out the scale, you add another thing, you zero out the scale, you add another thing. It takes a minute. It is not time consuming to weigh out your food. "Oh, I just don't want to take the time to weigh out my food." Yeah, that's a myth. Let's dispel that myth right now. It doesn't take any time to weigh out your food when you're eating at home. I would almost say, why not just do that, right? Like when you're looking at a meal at home, if you've made the food, just weigh it out. Like it's not hard to do, and put it in some sort of tracker. It takes a minute, right? It's not a even time consuming. And even I've been putting recipes into the thing, and as I'm making the food, I write out everything I put in there. So I'm not even trying to play with the app right then, right? I'm just writing out, hey, this is what's going into the recipe. And then I go put it in the tracker when I'm done, right? So I'll go sit watching TV, whatever. I can sit there and put the food into the tracker. It takes no time to do it. So it's really easy. And that gets you the discipline to and knowledge. It's not just discipline, but discipline and knowledge to when you're eating out or when you're doing something else to look and be realistic about what you're doing and to be semi-accurate. Because that was kind of the point of the other person I heard too. Is like, well, don't bother to track because you're not going to be accurate anyway. And you were already hitting on this too. Like that's fine, but I'd rather be close. I listened to a financial, and you mentioned metrics already too. I listened to a financial podcast called Afford Anything by Paula Pant. Really great financial podcast if you're into that. It's all about metrics. And her podcast is called Afford Anything, but her mantra is you can afford anything. You can afford, I almost messed it up. You can afford anything, but not everything. And I'm going to say the same thing about this journey too. I can eat anything, but not everything.
Right.
So let's circle back to that to kind of conclude the discussion on calories, right? if I'm looking for my calories during the day and it was the weekend and our roommate was like, "Dan, I really want a hamburger and a
Yeah.
milkshake and some french fries." And
And
I had been eating for the day. And so I looked and said, "You know what? I bet I could do that today." So I looked and I could. And yeah, I did weigh my french fries when they got home. That's the only thing I weighed. I had like a 10-ounce milkshake and a burger, right? I'd even try to weigh the burger. I just looked up burger on the app, right? And burger with vegetables on the app, put it in. So you can do that. Is my calorie count for that day going to be 100% accurate? No, but it's going to be a close approximation to what I ate for the day. And that's fine. You don't need to be exact every single day, but you do need to have that knowledge, right? And the same thing, like it'd be crazy for somebody to say, of course, I know people do it. I have friends that do it, but like crazy to say, like, oh, well, I don't really track my money because I don't need to, because there'll just always be money there. Can you imagine just somebody? I mean, unless you are independently wealthy or a trust fund baby, there's not always just money there. Like you have to make a conscious effort in some way to track that spending. Now, am I recommending that you have a ledger for every penny you spend? No, not after you get familiar with money. I'm going to make the same argument, right? Once you're familiar with the money you bring in each month and the amount you spend, well, yeah, I mean, you don't need to keep a ledger of everything you're spending because the bank's going to do that for you. We have lots of tools that do that for you now. But when
yeah,
you're starting, if you're in debt, if you're starting that journey, you should absolutely keep keeping a ledger of everything you're spending. Whether that's like an envelope system saying I get this much for this thing each month, or that is a concentrated check in your bank account literally every day, like tallying up at the end of the day, I spent this, this, and this. You should absolutely be doing that when you start. And if you're setting a money goal, right? So I guess it's not weight loss, it's money gain, right? In that case, we want to gain. But if you're trying to eliminate debt, and you're saying my goal for this month is I have $10,000 in debt, and my goal each month is to eliminate $1,000 of that debt. You better be tracking what you spend. It won't work. In the same way, why would we ignore that with fitness? That principle still applies. So we could have business metrics like you talked about. I certainly measure everything in my job too. It could be your personal finance metrics. Why would you then say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that for my fitness," if you want to get to a certain goal? And if you don't, that's cool too. But I mean, we would encourage you to get into that journey. Why not get into that goal with us? I mean, and the Fat Secret app is really easy to use. If you have the one thing I will say about those apps, here is my one gripe about the apps. I think for beginners using the apps, it does encourage them to scan barcodes. Don't be tricked into that. You can look up onion and just pick an onion, right? And put it in there. You don't have to like scan barcodes for everything.
yeah.
Uh,
But it's nice if you're like drinking something or something packaged. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the barcode feature is nice. I just don't want people to get locked into the easiest way to measure is with the barcode, and that's all I should do because then you're
Yeah.
just buying prepackaged food, which is kind of defeats the whole purpose of the beginning of the discussion.
Right.
But yeah, but my argument would be why not, right? You do it in other areas of life. It only takes a couple minutes. Track it, and you're going to be better off. And quite frankly, I'm happy. And we've been laughing about this a little bit. I've found days at the end of the day where I've looked at you and said, uh, I need to eat 300 more calories. What do you want me to eat?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
weird. That's a weird position to be in too.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for you too is, well, I guess I'll ask you is that during this process, have you been feeling like you're starving, like you're hungry?
No,
Yeah.
that's the weird thing. Because I think you're consciously thinking about foods too, right? And I've been eating really good meals. I mean, we're looking at like ribeye steak. I took a picture of one. It was like a ribeye steak, rice, and pineapple. It's really good food. I'm eating at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I love fresh pineapple. I know not everybody does. There are some fruits I hate, like that you probably could benefit from. Melon is really fantastic for filling your stomach. I don't like it, so I don't eat it. But a lot of people like melon, and there are good fruits, and like Paul was talking about with fiber. And no, I don't feel calorie deprived. Now, I will say I did hit a wall. Was it Wednesday when or was that? No, it was yesterday. We lifted. You had me riding the assault bike. I hate you. And those things are the devil. I don't know. Anyway, but we had a pretty tough workout yesterday. Would you say? Like it wasn't tough, but it wasn't an easy workout.
It was good. Good.
And, I got home and I made some stew in the morning for lunch, and I'd had that stew and I'd only had like 500 calories in me for the day. And I got home and felt like I was about to die and, made 4 eggs and, immediately ate, right? So I won't say 100% of the time I've always felt full, right? I've made some mistakes or, you know, with the best intention, right? The soup was great. Like it was 2.5 pounds of beef in the soup and, vegetables and everything and really healthy. But, it didn't give me enough calories, right? So there are a couple of times where the soup made me feel full because it's got the water and broth component, but I needed more calories. So there were a couple times I will say, like, where I did need more calories and I didn't feel like eating them, if that makes sense, because of the food choices I was making.
Yeah. But I think that's the better problem to have is like you're eating. I think that's the other thing too is you're more conscious about getting the most out of your calories, but you're also eating things that are filling, right? Like filling comes from the fact that they're more nutrient dense, right? Like more nutrient dense, high fiber, higher protein, ribeyes, things like that. They're more satiating, right? And so you're reinforcing that feedback system where it's like you're eating the right things, you're tracking, so you know, okay, I can eat even more. And at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I've hit all my macros and everything I need to do. Now I can have, a little bit of whatever. And it's not a mission. It's like, yeah, you can have, I don't know, whatever it was, like you have a bagel. Like, yeah, that's not going to kill you because you've accomplished all the other goals that you set out to do throughout
Yep.
the day. Um, but I think that's what you're getting from tracking, right? Is like you have a daily goal and it's not even a big deal. It's just like, yeah, I want to get 50% of my calories from protein. Right? Like, that's not like even a crazy goal. That's not, I mean, it's doable for everyone, but you have to be conscious about it because yeah, I mean, it's just too easy to just be like, oh, I went to lunch and I had a sandwich, so I got some good protein there. But then I ate, a whole bag of chips and I had a soda. And I was like, okay, well, then you ate 900 calories. That didn't get, I mean, at the end of it, it didn't give you any protein, right? And that's really a baseline of what people are probably undernourished with. Is they're probably not getting enough protein diets. They don't know it. And they don't know it because they're not measuring. Like they're like, I had that realization 4 days ago. I just was like, I'm just going to try when I first started tracking. I was like, I'm just going to track like what I've been eating when I haven't been paying attention. Like, just, I eat whatever I want. Right? And I got to the end of the day and I was like, oh, I only had 100 grams of protein. I was like, that's my problem. And for a lot of people, they're not even getting close to 100 grams of protein, right? Like they're not, I'm consciously trying to take in protein. I didn't have a protein shake that day. So, oh, and I got to the end of the day, I was like, do I want a protein shake or do I want this peanut butter sandwich? So she saw the peanut butter sandwich went out, but because I only had like 300 calories left for the day. And again, it's just a decision that I made. And I'm falling a little bit short on my protein goal, but I still hit probably like 130 grams of protein, which again is low for what I want and need, but is probably significantly higher than 80% of people are getting in their diet. Like I think most people would probably be very surprised how little protein they're getting. So that's the great thing about this that that's your secret app. It's just at the bottom. It's just got a nice little chart that just outlines it for you. It gives you all the percentages when you're tracking. Right? You get just an approximation. You get an approximate understanding of like, oh, I for that day, I think I got 50% of my calories from carbs, only like 35% from protein. I'm like, oh no, I gotta change that ratio. If I want to accomplish what I want to accomplish right now, I gotta change that ratio. And so that's just like the first thing that it gives me an indication of like
Yep.
what I have to focus on. And that
But I
only
would say when people start, and let's get, I think in the next one of the next couple of podcasts, let's start talking about like protein intake and why you would take in more protein and what your goals are. But I would say if I could teach anybody a lesson from right now, obviously we want people to take in protein, right? We want good ratios. I think the Fat Secret app defaults you. It's not a great ratio to me, honestly, for what we're doing. But I think it's a great ratio for an average person getting started,
okay.
right? Isn't theirs like 50% carbs almost on their automated goal? I'd have to look it up. I don't want to try to dive into it right now, but get there and it will kind of highlight red and areas for you. If you're getting started on this, just get started on the calories. Start figuring that out for a couple weeks and then start adjusting the macros, right? So get used to eating the right amount of calories for you and then go from there. What I also want to say too is don't go insane. Don't try to like just, you need to figure out your basal metabolic rate and figure out how many calories you need each day. Mine has changed substantially from when we started. Remember when we started, mine was 12 to 1500 need, and now it's 18 to 2200. I mean, that's because my body composition has changed. I have more muscle. I burn more fat in just sitting than I used to. I didn't have any muscle when we started. So when we started, it was 12 to 1500, right? If I remember correctly, that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now that I will admit was a little bit more difficult. Like 1500 was a bit of a challenge. But once we started losing weight, then wow, I could almost eat whatever I wanted for a while. So that will move around and age will impact that for you. Like there's different factors, but we're definitely not telling you, for heaven's sake, don't starve yourself, right? Do not starve yourself. Eat good things. That's what we're asking you to do. Eat anything you want, right? Within reason. Eat everything, afford or eat anything. I'll use Paula Pants line again, right? Eat anything, just not everything. And as long as you can fit it into your matrix for the day, enjoy your food. And the last thing I would say, don't get into a negative relationship with food, right? You know, I do think the intuitive eating community has one thing going for it with their mantra is they're trying to teach people not to have a negative relationship with food, right?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. Don't think. I've had a friend say, "Oh, if I train," this is actually with Dylan. So they were like, "Oh, I should go train with Dylan, but is Dylan going to tell me what to eat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Dylan's going to tell you what to eat. Like Dylan's not going to tell you what to eat, but he's going to tell you how to eat." Oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be told how to eat. And it's like, I think people, well, you had that face, but people do have a hang up with that, right? I don't think food is one thing that people control. Like a lot of times people don't want to be told how to eat, right? Or what they want to be told what to eat. And they think when you're telling them how to eat, you're telling them what to eat. And we're not telling you what to eat. We're telling you to eat, whatever your calorie count is. In my case, 18 to 2200 calories, and then fit the things into that schedule. And if most of the time you hit your protein goal or you set sub goals, that's fine. There's going to be a day when I don't hit a protein goal, and that's okay. But I'm going to continue to lose weight and I'm going to continue to get toward the body fat percentage I want as long as I'm staying under that calorie threshold. If you remember that, you're going to be in good
Mhm.
shape. You have anything
Yeah.
else to add to that piece?
No.
Well, let's wrap this up then. So this was our discussion on calories, and obviously we did a little update earlier in the episode. So we'll keep giving you the updates on how I'm doing as things go on. And yeah, and we'll probably, if you have a topic you want us to talk about, let us know. But and you can let us know on lots of different ways. You can let us know on Facebook. You can let us know on X, as long as we stay there. You can let us know on Blue Sky. I might just get mad and get rid of X someday, Paul, right? At some point, I'll get annoyed. I don't know. And maybe, you know what though? X, if you want to sponsor us, Paul and I would both appreciate free Teslas.
Yes, I will take a
Yeah,
free clip.
we will take a free one. I'm not paying for one, but I will happily take a free one. We're also on Instagram. We're on YouTube. So you can find us if you want to listen to podcasts on YouTube or any of the podcast ways, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, whatever that is. So you'll find us there. Like us or follow us on whatever app you have. That helps us out and helps us understand where you're at. And then if you want to reach me, you can reach me at dan@absat50.com. And if you have a question, topic you want us to discuss, if you want to learn about Fat Secret, if you want a link, if you just want to reach out to somebody, hey, that's fine. Connect us on the journey. So that's it. Paul, do you have any? I don't think you had any plugs last time. You have anything to plug besides go to Certified Martial Arts or Certified Jiu Jitsu at 27th and Bridgeport/Jackson in University Place/Tacoma. And he's got the shirt on. You can play with him.
Yeah, nothing to plug other than well, right now. Yeah, if you're following us on YouTube, you follow one of my various YouTube channels. Certified Jiu-Jitsu on YouTube as well. Um,
Yep.
check out all my instructional videos.
There you go. And if you and Paul will happily negotiate with you on a pricing structure to get you in shape too. So if you want to train with Paul. But the great thing about Paul's gym is if you want to train with Paul, you could pay Paul for personal training, but his gym is a flat fee. So if you go to his gym and you're in the Seattle Tacoma area, you pay a monthly fee and you have access to all of the classes at the gym. So you have access to striking, you have access to jiu-jitsu. And then if you want to set up some personal training with Paul, he'll put you through training like he does with me, like carrying heavy sandbags around the gym.
Good bad.
You won't start there, but
No,
eventually you'll get there. I definitely didn't start there, but geez. I don't think you thought I was gonna get done today.
you struggled today. I'll be honest. You never made struggling today.
Hey,
Let's
look,
be
I
It's because you went back to back because I was out of town.
but I did move the sandbags across your gym twice in an hour. So,
Yes.
that's what I normally do. So
No
and
easy feat. So if anyone thinks that's easy, come try it.
you didn't see it at the end, but I did get the 200-pound sandbag lifted up. I only drug it across once. I carried it on the way back on the last round. Very proud
Nice.
of myself. But yeah, but there's a lot of different ways. We do functional training too. We do a lot of functional training. The sandbags are my fun end of the week training. Did I used to call the sandbags the fun training?
No,
Now it's
maybe
like I look forward to the sandbags.
maybe someday you'll call this Aerodyne Bike the fun training.
The Aerodyne bike will never be fun.
Oh,
Nobody says it's fun. There's 0 people in the entire world that say it's fun. It is a thing that helps you. It's a tool to get you better, but it is not fun ever.
being here to have fun.
Nothing that makes that much noise is fun. Anyway, all right. Well, we're out of here, but we will see you next time and we'll talk more about this cool, super fun journey that I'm on. And hey, you can get on the journey too. And Paul's on a semi journey too. So he's lowering his weight back down for competition. So we get to kind of do it together a little bit. And then we may have an announcement from my other podcast, Funny Book Forensics. Hey, if you're a nerd too, like me, you can see all the comic stuff by me. You can listen to Funny Book Forensics with me and my podcast partner, Greg. And Paul, Greg said something about, oh, Dan, since you're setting a goal, I should set a goal.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That's, I'll let him know your response. That would be interesting. Well, I think it would be interesting, and maybe we could get Greg going too. So I think that's the thing. I think with my friends, you start doing this and it gets infectious. Like
Yeah,
even you weren't measuring your food before I started this, but then you were like, "What app should I use?" And I've got to do this now.
yeah. Well, for me, I'm just trying to be more proactive, so I don't have to cut much weight in February. So yeah,
You weren't doing it before.
social accountability. It's a real thing. It will really work. I'm a member of a group. Your group's behaviors will influence your individual behaviors. That is a
Or
proven
do a
fact.
podcast telling everybody you want to get to 15% body fat. That will and let that out for the whole world. That'll definitely get some accountability going. So,
Yeah,
all right. I go big or go home. I've never done anything small. For those of you that don't know, as I will end the podcast, I promise. But for those people, those folks that are new to me, I quit drinking caffeine one day, and it was also the same day that the property Paul and I owned flooded. It was the second day. I quit drinking caffeine, and I just figured if I can get through the headaches and all this with all this stress going on, I'm never gonna have to pick up caffeine again, and I haven't. And nobody wants me on caffeine anyway.
I love caffeine.
You do love caffeine. I'm not saying people should stop drinking caffeine. It's just bad for me. I'm an addict. I'm terrible on it, and I go crazy and want to murder everyone. So it's not good. But you don't have to stop drinking caffeine. That's what I'm not saying. But that's just kind of my personality. Go big or go home on this. So we're gonna go big. Let's do the social accountability and be done. All right, we're getting out of here, and we'll see you again next time.